Just 4 days before the 2004 US presidential election, a newly published tape appears on the news. The election between George Bush and John Kerry was dominated by foreign policy decisions in the wake of the September 11 attacks.
Al-Qaeda's key members and associates have been brought
to destroy, capture, kill Osama Bin Laden and all of the terrorists.
This tape, published by Al Jazeera, now shows a recovered Osama Bin Laden, claiming responsibility for the attacks much more directly than before. The staging of this recording, in which Bin Laden tries to appear as some legitimate figure, directly addressing the nation that he attacked, is a painful reminder that the most wanted man on the planet must be feeling somewhat safe wherever he may be. At the very same time, at the CIA headquarters in Virginia, where a special unit was tasked with finding Bin Laden, pretty much every lead had gone cold at this point. A situation that was even more frustrating considering that almost 3 years ago, they believed they were close to catching him. By the end of the 2001 US invasion of Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda fighters had been pushed into the eastern part of the country. Here, they barricaded themselves in the caves of Tora Bora, and American intelligence agencies suspected Bin Laden to be amongst them. Supported by the Americans, local Afghan tribes fought through the terrain, and heavy airstrikes were carried out. But by the time the battle was won, Bin Laden had already fled. After the fighting ended, only about 20 people were arrested, and the CIA was left empty-handed, having missed what may have been a unique opportunity to capture Al-Qaeda's leader. But at least one of the people arrested here would eventually open a lead for investigators to follow. Prior to his capture, Mohammed al-Qahtani was unknown to the investigators. He himself denied any connection to Al-Qaeda and said that he was in Afghanistan to pursue his interest in falconry. But when investigators took his fingerprints, they found a match in their system. They found out that just a few weeks before the September 11 attacks, he had tried to enter the United States. Carrying $2,800 in cash with him and traveling on a one-way ticket, the customs agent became suspicious of Qahtani and denied him entry to the country, fearing he might be trying to illegally immigrate. The investigators also knew that on the very same day, a call was placed from Orlando Airport to an Al-Qaeda telephone number in the United Arab Emirates. This number had been monitored, and the fact that Qahtani was at the airport at the same time made investigators scramble to establish some sort of connection between these events. FBI agents worked their way through piles of airport surveillance footage looking for more leads, and eventually they were successful. They were able to identify a car that was at the time rented by Mohammed Atta. Atta was the ringleader of the September 11 attacks and piloted American Airlines Flight 11 that struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center. It was concluded that Atta was waiting at the airport to pick up Qahtani. It is widely believed that Qahtani was intended as one of the hijackers of United Airlines Flight 93, which is the flight that failed to reach the attacker's intended destination because it crashed in Pennsylvania while the passengers were attempting to regain control. With that knowledge, Qahtani was interrogated, and he was one of several Al-Qaeda captives that in the coming months and years made it possible for investigators to get a better picture of the group's inner workings. Abu Zubaydah, a logistician for the group, was arrested in March 2002 and offered the CIA information that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who was Al-Qaeda's operational commander, had planned the attacks on America. 1 year later, he also was arrested. And Qahtani revealed that in July 2001, in preparation for the attacks, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed introduced him to a person previously unknown to the CIA, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, who trained Qahtani in operational security. All this helped investigators to understand Al-Qaeda's structure better, with less trained operatives, a command and planning layer, and Bin Laden as the leader. But they were still clueless as to Bin Laden's whereabouts. The CIA was mapping relationships to understand who was in close contact with him and how he communicated from his hiding place. The private network of Bin Laden, his family members, were also looked at. However, there was no contact between Bin Laden and those family members of him that could be located. What the CIA knew was that Bin Laden continued to send messages though. In the following years, new audio tapes appeared, and it was known that he was communicating with members of leadership within Al-Qaeda. The strategy of the CIA, therefore, was to look for the courier network, people that transport information.
Big and tasty.
War with Iran.
I'm running for governor.
Explode in the sky.
Our congratulations on
An historic victory.
In mid-January 2004, Kurdish security forces arrested a man named Hassan Gul. He was carrying a letter that was addressed to Bin Laden. Gul was handed over to the Americans, who interrogated him and received crucial information indicating that a key person to finding Bin Laden had already been on the agency's radar. Hassan Gul claimed that it is Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti who operates as Bin Laden's personal courier. As the focus of the investigation shifts to Kuwaiti, investigators receive conflicting information about his role within Al-Qaeda. While Hassan Gul describes a larger role and that Kuwaiti was familiar with both Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and with his successor Abu Faraj al-Libi, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, on the other hand, denies a major role of Kuwaiti and claims that this person has long since retired and is inactive. In May 2005, Abu Faraj al-Libi himself was also arrested in Pakistan, and he too vehemently denied a larger role of Kuwaiti. Investigators were also questioning a guy that goes by the name of Hambali, the former leader of Al-Qaeda's Southeast Asian affiliate group. He claimed that Kuwaiti did play a role, as he was the one managing a safe house in Karachi around the time the Taliban fled from Afghanistan. If anything, the many contradicting statements about the role of Kuwaiti made him all the more interesting. The problem was that other than his name, not much was known about him. And even the name itself is not uniquely identifiable, as it is not his real name, but an alias that translates as the father of Ahmed from Kuwait. While some important information was obtained through the interrogation of prisoners, the techniques used were highly controversial. Many of the prisoners were subjected to so-called enhanced interrogation techniques. That means abusive treatment including torture, such as in the form of waterboarding. A 2014 Senate Intelligence Committee report examining the individual interrogations concluded that these techniques were ineffective and did not help to obtain information about Bin Laden. Apart from that, there is the question of whether the display of the CIA's actions, seemingly freed from the rule of law, doesn't itself damage the national security of the country. It is a discourse that's bigger than the scope of this video. But with investigators stuck yet again, the next pieces of information will not come from their own work.
No, the sides of
Peace and stability.
Blockbuster Total Access, Netflix. Essentially, they work the same way.
The latest cyber drug of choice is called Twitter.
for a war that should have never been waged.
Calling it iPhone.
In 2007, the CIA received the information they're looking for: the true identity of the Kuwaiti. It does not come from their own research, but from a foreign intelligence service, which is not known. The information reveals the true name of the Kuwaiti to be Ibrahim Saeed Ahmed, a Pakistani whose family had only moved to Kuwait. But while they have waited 2 years to get the name, it will take further years until they are able to locate him.
President-elect for victory.
For bankruptcy.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Michael Jackson has died.
The rescue effort begins.
This guy is great, as good as we've seen.
In June 2010, the Kuwaiti and his brother changed the way to communicate with their cell phones, a fact that made it possible to determine the geolocation of the calls placed. The NSA had received telephone numbers suspected of being connected to Kuwaiti from a third country, which were now intercepted. Amidst the countless conversations monitored, one man stood out because he fit the profile of Kuwaiti. He spoke a mix of Arabic and Pashto, the language spoken in northwestern Pakistan. And in a conversation with a friend in the Persian Gulf, the man dodged the question of his whereabouts, cryptically replying that he is with the people he was with before. In addition, the investigators recognized that this individual goes to great lengths to prevent being tracked. His cell phone was switched off for most of the time, and it seems that he only put the battery in it when he was in the area around the city of Peshawar. As it became increasingly certain that this is Kuwaiti, efforts began to follow him on the ground. In August 2010, a Pakistani CIA agent managed to identify him in his car in Peshawar. From there, he was secretly followed on his way home. The large house surprised investigators. The agents had assumed that now that Kuwaiti had been identified, they would be monitoring him until he approached Bin Laden's hideout. But when you look at the massive compound in which Kuwaiti lives, investigators thought that they might already be there, that Kuwaiti may be living under the same roof as Bin Laden. Even though Washington wasn't entirely sure about it at the time, Bin Laden was located, and a manhunt that has had top priority since the September 11 attacks comes to its final stage. The task now was no longer with the intelligence agents, but with a team of special units who knew very little about what to expect when raiding this compound. On May 1st, 2011, at 11 p.m. local time, 2 Black Hawk helicopters, equipped with secret stealth technology, take off from Jalalabad airfield and head towards Bin Laden's compound. The mission is complicated by the fact that the United States government had decided not to inform Pakistan of the operation, which means the Navy SEALs had to avoid getting noticed, which seems especially challenging considering that Bin Laden's complex is located right next to a Pakistani military academy. The story of how this raid unfolded is truly fascinating, which is why I have produced another full-length video about this operation, creating detailed models of the mission's plan and mapping out how it played out during that night. But unfortunately, due to the violent nature of this topic, if I uploaded this video to YouTube, it would certainly get demonetized and age-restricted. Luckily though, I was still able to make the video, thanks to the power of Nebula, where you can watch it right now. With the mission not going to plan, a live video feed is streamed to the White House, where the president and his top security advisors are following the operation. This is just one of tons of exclusive videos only available on Nebula. I've also created a video about the construction of the Twin Towers, and another one telling the story of Flight MH17 that was shot down over Ukraine. And you also get access to all the other amazing stuff on Nebula. Because what's truly special about Nebula is that it is a creator-owned platform, built by me and other YouTubers and podcasters. And because it's a subscription service, we get to work on larger, higher budget productions than we ever could on YouTube.
Players, welcome to the show.
The most sophisticated flying machine.
The Bush administration decided to focus on attacking Afghanistan.
Oh boy.
If you sign up using my link on screen right now, you will get a $10 discount a year, which means it will cost you only $3.33 each month. That way, you will support the ambitious project that me and my friends have embarked on of building our very own streaming site. Thank you so much for watching.